Yes, welcome to our YouTube channel, IT Fundi, your tech channel where you get tech reviews, where you get insights into different technologies, self-help videos, how-tos, tech news, you name it. All that is available here. I encourage you to subscribe, and let's dive in. Today we are having another installment of Openmrs. Openmrs is a medical record system that is designed for low and middle income countries, initially providing HIV care in Kenya, and at some point in one of my previous videos I said malaria by mistake. It's HIV, and of course it has spread ever since to become a very powerful enterprise ready medical record system. Forgive the slip of the tongue there. It has a far reach, as you can see. It's not only low and middle income countries, typically Africa and maybe some parts of Southeast Asia, South America. You can also see it in North America, Alaska, and all these different places. Very powerful system with a lot of sites, a lot of reach, and of course a very big impact. Now this installment will be dealing with a number of things. Number one, how to get started as a developer. The other time, in a previous video that I will have linked in the description below, we're dealing specifically with front-end development, what you need to know, how you need to get started. But here I'll I'll be showing you how you can get your hands dirty and ready to go. We'll also be seeing basically the steps, whether you want to be a front-end or a back-end developer. The other time it was mainly front-end. We shall have a look at back-end basically in this segment. The types of developers, of course this was written quite a while back, but I think it's still relevant. I've seen from my participation in the community, I've seen mentors, I've seen GSOC, non-GSOC project mentors, and so on, so also critical. We'll be also diving into a technical overview. In this segment, like I've said, we'll be looking at the backend mainly, a bit of the architecture, the data model, and things that are really under the hood for Openmrs. We'll see, of course, we'll get a chance to see that in full detail. And of course, we shall be seeing the data model, very powerful. How it is built and how intricate it is. Of course, you'll get a feel of that. We'll also see a bit of the API and how that looks like, and of course I just give you a bit of this. You'll see how big this data model is, and then yes, you can have a look at this. I'll link all this in the description below, and it will be very helpful to you in your journey. We'll see developer stages, criteria, and requirements to hop whatever, and how maybe you can become the coveted Dev 5. One of those. It's like it's of course a bit of motivation to the community, but also it adds credibility to you, and of course opportunities in the long run. Long run may be as little as 6 months to a year. Long run can be 2-3 years, depending. Not to make you lose courage, but yeah, it's how much effort you put, so that you stop being a noob probably. So then the other time we had a demo of the front end. This is built with React. This time we'll be going to see the legendary, what they call the legacy UI. You can, it doesn't need much of introduction. You can see a minimalistic new design versus, yeah, it's also minimalistic, but you can see, yeah, it's a bit dated, but has dated quite well. All right, so let's dive in, and let's start at the developer, getting started as a developer. Now here, of course, you will get to appreciate what languages are used, what technologies, but basically here a few links that are very critical for you to look at. The API and so on, but the data model is very critical in this. We'll see how that works. Like I said, I'll link all this in the description. It's since it's a developer journey, there will be a lot of reading and learning, but it also means that you get the opportunity to experience a world to experience how it feels to be a world-class developer, of course in a real world scenario, developing a real product. yeah, it's not it's not a get rich quick scheme, but this is something that requires a bit of elbow grease, and if you put in the effort, definitely there is it's a rewarding career, I must say. All right, so here a few things getting started. Joining the community, learning about the developer stages, very important. It helps give the motivation. Setting up Git for collaboration. So here you determine whether you want to be a front-end or a back-end developer. Creating your first module, we'll see what a module is and where that falls in the whole architecture of Openmrs, where to find help, and some useful resources. Of course, the links are here. How you create an ID. This is where you start from. This is the first thing you should do as you join the community. Openmrs talk, I demonstrated this in my intro video of Openmrs. That community platform where you can ask questions, introduce yourself. There's also Slack for real-time messaging. Like I said, all these different portions of Openmrs help you to get a feel of how it is, because things like Slack channels and community forums and documentation are things that form these big apps that we covet. For maybe the JavaScript developers, MDN Docs is one of those places that you flock to from time to time, learning about libraries, functions, and all this. So likewise, it's also good to have a view of this. There's a community calendar, maybe some of the calls you might want to join, looking at how the teams work. This also helps you to get a view of potential employers probably in the community, to know different people who can hook you up with gigs. But of course, it's there is credence that has to be put to your name that you're able to deliver. All right, so there's also an issue tracker. This is where tickets are recorded. This is in Jira. I've seen a bit of a war between ClickUp and Jira, just in one of the adverts. Jira is one of those tools that's powerful for ticketing. It has quite a lot of features and is very powerful, and that's what is used by the community. So here you'll see the developer stages. You'll get a chance to see the repos, the public repositories, and how you can contribute. So for backend development in particular, you need Java 8 minimum, but of course Java, there are versions as new as 17. Maven, which is a build tool. The way you have NPM for JavaScript, here you have Maven, where it's a declarative kind of style where you write in XML files, the pom.xml, and specify dependencies, exclude things. Yeah, you can do a lot of the whole shebang can be achieved within Maven. So whatever machine you're using, Docker is very critical. Containerization. If you're into development and you haven't heard of containerization, you really need to get up to speed with that. Very powerful tools for orchestration like Kubernetes. Of course, here we use Docker, but there is Containerd, and there are different container runtimes. So all those things, you name it, you need an IDE. Of course, you can use IntelliJ or the most coveted VS Code now. Of course, these tools, since they are custom made or they are tailored to a specific thing, they will give you a better experience in one way or another. Debatable, really, but you can actually enjoy the same experience using VS Code. And also the Openmrs SDK, and then you can run the server locally. The whole guide to this is there. How to create a module, I will see what that is and how that fits into the architecture. And here a lot of resources that you can look at. Of course, like I said, this gives you a feel of the professional world. You get to see how what guidelines are there for writing code. How do you make a good PR on GitHub? That's the chosen place for collaboration. The other platforms like Bitbucket and all these other places, but specifically here, it's GitHub that is used. Code review, how do people look at your code, and pull request tips, basically guidance for you, and of course a lot of documentation. This is I scroll slowly. It's something it's rather new. It's not so new, but you can see it's fairly recent and updated. And yeah, it should be a quick reader. 4 minutes should be enough initially, but you can reference this as many times as you want. Okay, so types of developers. So we talked about a backend developer. So here you can be a casual developer. You just take tasks from Jira and you basically contribute you write code, share, get your code reviewed, and you see there is the casual developer, but also there is someone who can also review code. So the developer stages, we shall see as you gain seniority, you're able to actually have a good eye and help keep the code fresh and clean. So you can see there's the casual developer, there is the project developer, where there are different projects, and of course a little bit of timelines. That means pressure as well. No, but some of these are voluntary, others are paid, depending. So there is also being a mentor. So that means there are mentorship programs for those who want to start. You can read about GSOC. You can also be a project mentor for other people on different projects. You can see specific implementation. You'll hear of things like Uganda EMR. Those are distributions, true. You'll hear of things like Kenya EMR, Uganda EMR. You'll hear of things like BAMNI and so on. So these are, yes, they are distros, but in a way they are, I could say these are like, they are custom made, or they are configured for a particular setting. So you can also be very pivotal in that. Like I said, it's a bit old, but it gives you a view of the possible things you can do in the community. Now this applies both to backend and frontend. You can be a mentor of frontend and backend stuff. Yeah. So also the technical overview here. So like I said, we want to see what's under the hood. Now the overview is a bit quick. We can have a quick overview. There's a lot of wording here, verbiage that you can look at. But in essence, what I want you to appreciate is we can have a quick look at this technical overview right here. So you can see there is a kind of architecture: presentation, service, and database. So the data model is that, of course, the modeling that of the tables, the relations, the entities, and all that, how your information is actually structured in Openmrs and how it is stored. This forms part of the architecture. You have an object relational mapper, which is Hibernate, and this is of course written in Java language, and there's a Spring framework. Initially there was a use of jQuery, which we shall see, but now we use React, and there is the Openmrs API, and of course there's a REST API, like I had mentioned in my previous video. You can check that out, link in the description. And then of course MySQL, so the use there is MariaDB, and of course yeah, that's how your data is stored. A lot of explanations are given here. You can go through those. I don't want to make the video too lengthy, but you can see the model view, controller pattern, and you see things like in some technologies that are phased out, telling you that they keep up to date, and jQuery that is used for the legacy UI, and yeah, you'll see that in a minute. We can also see Liquibase for change management, for building of Openmrs. Like I said, if you know something about NPM, yeah, Maven does something similar, which it's a build tool. Liquibase is a change set. It's also quite an interesting technology, utilizing XML. Okay, Hibernate, object relational mapper. You can read much about that. And yeah, privileges. Every system has to be secure. Of course, this is health data with PHI, or public personal health information. And another terminology there is PII, which is personal identifiable information, things that are very critical for standards like GDPR and HIPAA. Those are all standards, of course, that try to protect data privacy. Yeah, so here we talked about modules at one point. So these are like, they're like the individual components that you plug in, and of course there is an interaction. Some of the modules, you'll see one of the places to get started is to build your own module. I think it like I've given you the description initially here. You'll be able to see, let me just skip there. You'll be able to see where you can create your own module, and that will, it will give you an in-depth insight into what that actually means. Okay, I don't want to make this so lengthy. So, another idea here is the data model. This is very, very important. How is data modeled? How is it built? You have a concept, which is, for example, a question, and also an answer. For example, what is your age? Age is a question, but also age receives an answer, so that stands as a concept. Another thing is weight. Weight is in a sense a question, that what is your weight, but also it has data attached to it, which is the in kilograms or pounds, depending on what metric system you use. Forms, how do you capture data? Encounter, for example, a healthcare provider could be a doctor, a nurse, a registration clerk at the front desk, whoever it might be. And an encounter is that interaction you have with them. An observation is the piece of data recorded from you. For example, I said weight is a concept because it can be a question but also receives data, and then it's an observation because it can change, and it's a piece of information that is recorded at a particular point in time. Now the other construct here is patient and user. So person is the underlying, that every human being is a person, and that person can either be a user of the system, that is, for example, you, the admin, you let me say the administrator, but also a patient is a person. So you have this kind of tree structure where you have that relation. We shall see that in the legacy UI. We can also see non-medical data, for example, things relating to billing, things related to, for example, location and biodata and all that. Then, of course, you have cohorts and so on. This is basically an overview that you can look at for the different versions. You can see there is version 1.8 and so on. Of course, there are newer versions to this. And yeah, so let me just basically show you real quick how complex this is. Now, let me just use this image over here to show you, for example, to zoom in into an encounter and how an encounter relates to locations, how an encounter relates to cohorts, how an encounter relates to concepts. I really want you to just appreciate the sheer size of this and scale, and of course the interconnectivity and how this was modeled. Now, to tell you that this system is really something that has been given time and refined over time is not an understatement. I really want you to maybe take a time and look at that. But also critical is looking at this API and seeing the kind of interaction that is there and the relations. I want you to just see how many things are interacting. This shouldn't scare you. Of course, you start from somewhere and you go on advancing. Okay, so you also have here to look at the tables individually. In case you're curious for that, I'll add that to the description below so that you can also continue with that. Then the developer stages. So here are the different stages, and you can also read about the criteria, expectations, and what privileges come with it. So there's dev null, dev 1. So you can achieve this as fast as possible as long as you can meet the expectations. And like I said, the most coveted one is the dev 5, and you can see what is expected of you. Of course, you shouldn't rush. The important bit is to get the best learning experience and being able to share. Also not only grow in your career, but also mentor others. Okay, so for the nicely coveted part, so the other time we dealt with the front end, which is Openmrs 3, built with React. But today, and of course, there's a bit of a very interesting technology called micro front ends. But here today we're going to look at the legacy UI that is in jQuery, and we'll log in real quick, and you'll be able to see. Okay, let's just log in and see how that goes. Right, so okay, so I was having a bit of trouble there. Since it's a test environment, you can always see expect it to be a bit unstable, but this is how it looks like when we log in. And when we log in, we're able to see different features of Openmrs. You have what they call a dictionary, where you can have, for example, pre-existing pieces of information. So some of these come preloaded to just save you the hassle of having to create all of these afresh. You can really read about concept dictionaries and how powerful these things can be. So Openmrs ships with that. There's a bit of reporting before I go to the final part. So there's a bit of reporting where you have you can customize reports. So there are two ways of doing this. You can connect Openmrs via an HIS system like Ozone, or Bamni to tools that can harvest this data like Metabase or Superset, but also it comes pre-built with some forms that you can utilize, and you can also customize your own writing SQL queries. But then what I wanted to show you here is with relation to the data model. There was the bit of concepts. If Edge will allow me to continue to work. Yeah, so you have concepts, you have users, you have patients. Like I said, a person can be a user, a person can be a patient, or the reverse. A user is a person, or a patient is a person. You can have visits, encounters, locations, observations, and of course some of the others are utilities like a scheduler to close my particular tasks, maybe, and so on and so forth. Really, this is something like I invite you to explore much and much more, and I'm sure you will have a lovely experience working with Openmrs. Again, I call you to subscribe to the channel and continue sharing, like, and comment and give feedback that is constructive, and we should take this ahead. I'll see you in a bit. Ciao.